Jazakallah khair. Our next question is from Gita or Jida. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your names wrong. Malikul. What are the limits to dawah? If a person raises an argument about Islam, is it better to give a firm answer even if it will offend the religious belief of the other person? Or is it better to refrain from angering the person, especially if they are a friend, and deferring them to another person, literature, or answering the question while doing the best to avoid that which is offensive, even if it takes away from what is most accurate in regard to Islam? I'm going to pass the mic to Ustadha Noura to answer this question for us.
Alaikum warahmatullah. This is a really good question. Jazakallah khair, Sister Gita, for posting it. The first thing to remember is that our example in how to give da'wah is really the Prophet, peace be upon him, and to realize that he always dealt with people in the best of manners, that he didn't get into arguments and fights with people, but at the same time he didn't ever shy away or sugarcoat, if you will, or water down the rulings and the knowledge that he had received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the same time, it does not mean that we tell everyone everything at any given moment. One of the best pieces of advice I ever had about da'wah was that if someone asks you a question, answer the question they asked you without overwhelming them with a lot more information. If they only had that one question, they'll stop at that point, but you will have given them something to think on and to reflect about. If, however, they are interested in learning more, and you end your comment by saying, if you have further questions, I'd be happy to answer them, then you leave the door open for them to pursue and to sort of set the pace for the da'wah conversation, if you will. Now, if you get into a heated discussion with someone, the first thing to do is to check your own intention and to calm yourself down, and to realize that oftentimes as a human being, when we get into sort of a heated situation, it's very possible for our own ego to get involved, and we want to prove the other person right, and we might try to tell ourselves it's because we want to prove that Islam is right, but you have to be careful, because oftentimes it becomes about me. And if that's the case, then you really need to take a step back. Each of us would need to do that, and to calm ourselves down, to seek refuge in Allah, and to renew our intention that this whole conversation is to try to bring this person to the truth, and that we have a recognition that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may use us to bring someone to the truth or not. And so we calm ourselves down, we bring our voice level down, and we stop and think, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what is the purpose of this conversation? Where is it going? Bring things back to a level that is more reasonable. Don't get into, if you get into a conversation where it becomes people trying to defend themselves and so on, then nobody's listening anymore, in which case the purpose of this conversation is not da'wah anymore, it's about winning an argument. So in that time, it's best to smile, take a deep breath, redirect the conversation, go on to something else. I was in a conversation once with someone and they wanted to prove their point and kept wanting to argue and so on, and I finally said to them, I don't want to have this conversation because you're not interested in listening to my side and what I'm trying to say. And so, in that circumstance, then you just walk away from it or refer to someone else. At the same time, we have to remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that guides, and that really the best form of da'wah is good character and good dealings with people. This is really the way to convince someone. And when they ask you a question, give the best answer you can. If you don't know the answer, if you're unsure, tell them that. Tell them you'll find an answer for them, or refer them to someone else. So the key is to make sure that your ego isn't getting involved, particularly if it's in any way a heated conversation, to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to recognize that it is Allah who guides and not us. So it's not about, if I'd come up with a better argument or if I just push harder. And the other thing is to give people time. To question your beliefs, to question what you were raised with and what you believed and were taught was true is a very scary thing. And many people shy away from conversion or from thinking about religion and the ultimate questions of life because they're scared to death. They're just terrified. And so we have to recognize that in other people and have a lot of compassion and a lot of mercy for them and make a lot of da'wah for them. The Prophet ﷺ, his ummah is every single human being from the time of his messengership, from the time he was sent until the end of time. And so the ummah is of two parts: those who his general audience, if you will, and that's everyone, and those who've answered the call, and those are the specific. So every time you interact with someone, remember that these are people who are fellow human beings. These are people who are potentially members of the ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ, and it was his hope that everyone would be guided. People, the hellfire and the punishment of Allah is something you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. So inshallah, just have a very kind and loving attitude towards these people when you're talking to them, whether they're in your own family or your friends or strangers on the street or the person sitting next to you on the airplane or the bus. And remember that it's really our character, and it's often things that we don't realize that we do. So people, you are giving da'wah in the way you interact with people at the grocery store, at the library, on campus, as you walk. If you walk with a smile on your face, you have a generally a good attitude and a positive personality. This is what attracts people, and people look for truth, but they also look for goodness, they look for happiness, they look for contentment. So inshallah ta'ala, these are just some general ideas and feedbacks and comments on ways to give da'wah. Inshallah ta'ala, this was beneficial, and anything is good is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and anything wrong is from me, and I ask for your forgiveness inshallah.